For almost 20 years, my family lived in Massachusetts. Our house was surrounded by beautiful woods, river, lakes, nice neighbors, full of New England charm. But something was missing: the mountains. Whenever we travel to mountains, we'll feel the extra energy, excitement, and the sense of belonging. We soon realized that the few trips to mountains every year was just not enough. We want more. So we decided to leave behind everything and move to live in the mountains. Was that a good idea? I have a heck of a story to tell you. The first thing we need to do is to research which mountain town we want to move to. Nah, just kidding. We know exactly where we want to move to. If you look at this channel, you probably noticed that we make a lot of video. Lots and lots of video about a particular state. Yes, Utah. That's where we want to go. Even before kids, 10 plus years ago, my wife and I always went to Utah to do hiking. We love the canyons and landscape here. And a couple years ago, when our entire family started to ski, we realized that Utah has the best skiing in North America. So we wanted to move to Salt Lake City, closest to our favorite ski resort, Altum and Stillberg, and still access to all of the mountains and canyons nearby within driving distance. In January, we started to look for houses. After brief research, we quickly realized that most of the houses in Salt Lake City has some sort of mountain view, which we love. But the bad news is that there aren't that many houses out there. Salt Lake City has been the hottest real estate market in the country. There are way more buyers than sellers. After we narrowed down the location, what we're looking for, and the budget, there's 0 houses meets our needs. We check every week and come back empty-handed. And finally, after 2 full months, we saw a house fits our need. They had this amazing mountain view, and we fell in love.
Pretty spectacular.
We put in a pretty strong offer with an escalation clause, which means that we're gonna match any price, plus $5,000. But even with that, the seller didn't give us a chance because we didn't put as much deposit because we haven't saw the house in person. Therefore, we lost the house. It took another month before we saw another house, came on the market, fit our needs. And this time, we're ready to make an even stronger offer. It has everything we need on their website and has this lovely swimming pool. But
The top of the countertop, it's 3'7", so it's 7 inches higher than a normal cabinet height. I don't know if the people that did this were just really tall, but like the stove and stuff, I'd need like a stool.
Wow.
That's kind of crazy.
while we're getting defeated in the buying market, we're trying to prepare our house for sale. We have lived in this house for 12 years and we just have way too much crap. So we need to clear everything, organize everything, throw things out. It's a time sink, it's a black hole. But we knew that's something we gotta do. Then finally, we get our house in a nice enough shape and ready for sale. At the end of April, we got our house on market. We have open houses from Thursday to Sunday. According to our agent, there were a lot of interest. There are a lot of people coming to see the house. We do have high hope for the house because the real estate market is good. We're hoping to sell this house at a good price so that we can afford a house in Salt Lake City. Sunday night, 8:30 is where we set the deadline for our buyers to submit offers. That day, we've been watching our phone, hoping to hear good news from our agent. But unfortunately, no news in the morning, 12 o'clock, nothing, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, nothing, 7 o'clock, nothing. The anxiety levels start to build up and we start to doubt ourselves. What if nobody offers us? Can we even afford a house in Salt Lake City? Finally, at 8 o'clock, a text message from our agent. Multiple offer received, it's all good. What a sign of relief. We signed the contract at the beginning of May with the closing date at the end of June, which gave us less than 60 days to find a house in Salt Lake City, which seems impossible given how hot the real estate market is. But luckily, there was a changing economy.
So the central bank is expected to announce its first interest rate hike of 0.5 percentage point in more than 2 decades.
Federal Reserve announced it's raising interest rates for the 3rd time this year.
1 in 5 sellers dropped their asking price so far this month.
With housing market cooling off, we see more and more houses on the market and they don't get bought right away. By the end of May, we saw this house we like. What's special about this house is that not only it has the view of the mountains, it is on the mountain. When I think about moving to the mountains, that's the type of the house I want. Not only there's great view, but also there's easy access to the mountain, potentially hiking, mountain biking. And normally, those type of houses tend to be big mansions with very high price tag we cannot afford. But this one, that's much smaller than usual and with its price within our range. But here's the catch. The price of this house is at the top of our range that we can afford. If anything we saw in the last couple months holds true, the final selling price will be significantly higher than this, which means that we cannot afford this. We put in an offer and hope for the best. We had to wait for 2 days for the answer from the seller, and we keep our expectation low because more likely than not, we're gonna miss this house again. On Monday, our agent called us back. Surprisingly, we got the house. I couldn't believe it. I think what happened is that the real estate market was cooling off and fast. That house only received 2 offers, so we lucked out. And looking back at those months of the hard work of packing, selling, anxiety, all seem to be worth it because this house really is in the mountains. Everything seems to be good. Until in the middle of June, I got this phone call from our real estate attorney. We have a big problem. The house we're trying to sell had an open order of condition, which means that there are work that were required by the city to be done around the house hasn't been done. And without that work being done, I won't be able to sell the house. Specifically, 12 years ago, this house was built on a piece of conservation land, and the builder had to cut down a few trees. As a result, he was required to plant more trees so that we can preserve the environment. He did plant those trees. In addition, he was required to do 3 things. 1, ensure 75% of trees survive for at least 2 years and hire environmental professional to come over to inspect them. Number 2, build a fence around the trees so nobody can touch those trees. And number 3, hire a surveyor to mark where the fence is to make sure they meet the requirement. The builder didn't do any of these. And now I need to do all of them. It was super frustrating because my attorney, when I bought the house, didn't discover any of these. And now I need to spend all the money. It's gonna be a few $1,000s to do them. But more importantly, it's next to impossible to do all of those things within 3 weeks. If I won't be able to finish all of these, I won't be able to sell the house. I won't have the money to buy the new house. I was really sad that night. But next morning, I woke up and decided to give it my best shot to get those things done. I spent hours and hours trying to call different folks. Most of them don't have availability. With my persistently trying and the willingness to pay more money for expedited service, I was able to find the fence guy, the surveyor, and the environmental specialist to come over within 2 weeks. So miraculously, I was able to get all of those things done, which is good, but it's not over. Our buyers didn't like the fence. They didn't like the fact that a small corner of the yard was fenced out and they couldn't use it. And they demand us to lower the price. I guess it's reasonable, but what's not reasonable is that they demand a ridiculous amount of money. $80,000 for a small corner that they couldn't use. We tried to reason with them. The fence followed the white line. So basically this corner gets fenced off, but this is corner where there's no grass anyways. Nothing grows here because of the trees. But they said their plan to cut down all of those trees, they have some grand vision of landscaping. That's interesting because those trees were so close to the river. According to Massachusetts wetland law, you cannot cut down anything that's close to the river. We have a 24 by 36 map in the center of the house during the open house to point out which part of the land that's conservation land that they cannot touch. So their landscaping plan was not working anyway. Our agent tried to explain to them, but they didn't listen. They just keep coming back, ask for $80,000. At which point, we realized that they were not trying to reason. They're just trying to extract as much money from this as possible. But at the end of the day, there are really only two options. We either walk away, relist our house, or we negotiate with them. Having already exhausted from the process, we decided to negotiate. We ended up agreeing to lower price by much smaller than $80,000, but much higher than anything that's reasonable. How our buyer is approaching this really left a bad taste in our mouth. I'll be honest, that was a point I thought moving was not worth it. It's just too much. But we move on. The rest of June flew by quickly. We were very busy on hiring movers, more packing, the moving, and the actual move. This was last night. We sleep in this house. Gonna say goodbye today. We say goodbye to our neighbors who we love. It was very sweet. Then we make our long drive to Salt Lake City. My wife and daughter flew there and they got there a couple days before we did, and they were able to check it out, the house. They found out that there is actually a hiking trail right behind the house. It could be potentially accessible from the backyard of the house. They didn't attempt themselves because it seems to be really steep and there's bushes. That's something got us really excited about. Can we really access to that trail? How good is the trail? Are there any views? So that becomes something we really want to find out. Then a couple days flew by, we arrived, we got the keys. Instead of checking out the house, I'm gonna check out the place I'm mostly curious about. It's the backyard because it leads to the mountain and there may be a trail. Let's check it out. I'm pretty excited.
So cool.
We're at the trail?
Oh my god, that's perfect.
Can't believe this view right off the bat.
20 steps from our backyard.
It's been a lot of work to move, right? A lot of
Yeah.
trouble, up and downs, driving across the country, having trouble selling a house. In the process, I doubt our decision, but after this first night, our first sunset,
Yeah.
literally from our backyard, it's all worth it. We're gonna have years to explore all of those mountains.